So let us make a multi-view object drawing. Assume that our object has 100 millimeter by 100 millimeter dimension. You see, remember our cross. Let's create a baseline for our object. Let me increase the length. Assume that this is our baseline. Okay, and let's create guidelines from the object. I am making this as dash line. Later I will delete these lines. So within this area, our object will be drawn. Okay. Assume that the height of the object is 150 millimeter. Okay. So it's a little bit much close. So I have changed the location of this horizontal guideline. Let's continue. Assume that we have creating these guidelines, and I'm changing this as dash line. Assume that I have created such line at here. I will make it as 45-degree angle. And extending this line until here and making this line as dash line, and I am copying, trimming, and let's continue. There is a shortcut transferring property of a line to the another line. The shortcut is called as match property. Actually, the short name is MA, match property. Open this command, change the preference line, and then transfer the characteristic of this line to the other lines. Okay, all the properties are transferred to this line. And let's create our guideline at here, and by using MA, apply to the guidelines. So remember multi-view object. If we have two view, we can create the third view by looking at these two view. Okay. So this is our multi-view object. Let's do this exercise in another object. Assume that we have 150 millimeter by 80 millimeter dimension at top. Let's create our cross and create a baseline. Transfer the object property to this line as to make this line as guideline. Finally, you will get accelerate on use of these commands. At the start, you may be slow, but the speed is important for AutoCAD drawing. And assume that our height of the object is 120 millimeter. Okay, we have created top view and front view. And then by looking at the object presented at here, we are creating our guidelines. Again, rotate this as 45 degree and extend the line. Again, later I will delete these lines. So I made this line, type as dash line. Again, create your rectangle at here. So we have do two exercises. Let's draw a cylinder. This time, use the circle commands. Assume that this circle has 75 millimeter radius and create your. You don't have to create a guideline, just present. But let's continue our habit. We don't need to use the third side. Why? Because the cylinder has equal sides. Let's create much more, enable much more void at here. I would like to show you another command. The command is called as stretch. S, the stretch command. What is it for? If you open this command and if you select, for example, create a selection area, you see this line is completely selected. However, part of this line is selected and press enter. You can extend the line, you see, extend the line without distorting the connection, you see. Okay, so it's very helpful for you. This will be my base. Let's create guidelines from edge. Let's draw our cylinder from sides. Assume that it has 300 millimeter height. Remember, we must present some lines identifying that this surface is cylindrical. Otherwise, if we don't see this cylinder top view, we could not understand whether this object view belongs to a rectangle or cylinder. When you look at this object or this object and this object, there is no difference. We must separate rectangle from cylinder by applying surface view. Remember that in order to achieve that purpose, we were creating guidelines. These guidelines are presented here by providing certain angles between these guidelines at the inside of this circle. So in order to do this job, please follow these commands. Select this line and then activate rotate. Select the center of the radius. Initially, before providing an angle, press C as copy C and press enter, and then give an angle, for example 15 degree, and press again enter. You see, when we enter input as C or copy commands before giving digit of the angle, it enables us copy of the rotated object, rotated line, you see. Again, let's continue. Select the line and then activate rotate. Select the referencing line, the origin. If we don't enter copy, or just without entering the copy, if we just enter the input as the digit, you see it delete the original line as here. Okay. In order not to make two job, we initially enter as C and then enter or input angle. Okay. There are various methods to make a job, a work at here. You can use any of them. Let's continue. The last one must be this one. When you do the quarter of the circle, you don't need to create for the remaining. You can use mirror at here, and let's extend the guideline. And let's trim the unnecessary lines, activate the commands, select the rectangle, and get rid of from the lines. And we have presented the half of the cylinder. Select this line and use mirror commands. Select the center line and press enter. So we have created a cylinder. Let's change the line types. Let's change the line thicknesses. So we shouldn't see these lines at here. We shouldn't see these lines at here. Okay. And again, you don't need to see this cross. Make it a little bit closer to the circle, to the side view of the cylinder. So we said that all the lines specifying the texture of a surface must be done with thin line, always thin line, and the border of the object must be either medium or thick line. Okay, so separate the surface hatching from border of the object. Okay, let's check our object. Let's see what we have drawn. You see, the surface hatching must be lower than the border of the object. Okay. Let's small the object. You see, it's much more clear. So please make these exercises a couple of more in order not to forget these comments. They are very helpful for you. Pay attention.